Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Matthew, sir, for introducing me. And thank you, Hologic, for giving me this opportunity to talk on ultrasound in breast imaging, right from basics and to the high end application that's possible in ultrasound. Before we start off with our talk, I want each one of you who would like to practice ultrasound in breast imaging to remember these three important aspects. The first and the foremost being how well you know your machine. It's very important to know the potential of the machine that we have. It is something like how well we know our husband. If we know our spouse very well, obviously we are going to get the best out of a relationship, and it is same with the machine. If you know what is capable of, what this machine can deliver to us, it's very obvious that we are going to get the best out of the machine that we have. The second most important point to remember is, why are we imaging? It's very important to know what is the clinical question to be answered before we start off the case. It is, if you don't know what we are going to answer, we will not be giving the correct diagnosis to the patient and also to the referring clinician. It is something very equivalent to you go for a shopping, roam around here and there in the mall, and finally end up buying something which you're not intended to. So it's very important and crucial to know the clinical indication for the particular examination to give the correct diagnosis and also to answer the clinical question. The third is, all of us practice that, how to interpret the findings, to have a sound theory knowledge, to know very well about the biorhythms, so that we logically analyze the findings that we see on a particular patient to give the final diagnosis and recommendation. The first part is the equipment. As we all know, breast is a superficial structure, and so we have to have the linear probe to image the breast. The most commonly used one is the frequency between 15.4 for majority of the cases. However, we do have various body habitus, and hence for bigger breast and obese patients, we may have to use a lower frequency, which is being 10.2. These are the two basic probes that is required and the basic one that we need to image breast. However, if you have these two probes, it is something like an icing on the cake. Like, I'm fortunate to have these two. But the first one is the hockey stick probe with a much higher frequency, which goes up to 20 megahertz. And this probe gives fabulous information about the superficial structures, especially when you're evaluating a nipple areola complex. And whenever you evaluate the nipple areola complex, ultrasound is the modality to pick up subtle abnormalities. And the second one, which is another a plum on the cake, I would say, is the volume 3D volume linear probe. And as we go through our talk, I will show you fantastic images which this probe can deliver, which makes a lot of difference, not just in the appearance, but also in the diagnosis to the patient. The second one is, how do we position the patient? Whenever we are seeing imaging the outer quadrant or the lateral aspect, we should ask the patient to lie away from that side, slightly to the opposite side, so that the breast falls away from that part and it is easier to scan the outer quadrant. However, we can image the medial quadrant or the inner aspect of the breast in the supine position. Having seen that, we have so much of advancements in the ultrasound. We started with the MeBoard and then Doppler, and then we have elastography, 3D volume imaging, and contrast enhanced ultrasound. Let's see one of them, each one of them. B-mode is still the basic building block for evaluation of breast. B-mode is something like the foundation of the building. All the advanced technologies will give good images only when you have a best B mode image. This is still the best technique for morphological characterization of the lesion, which is the key important finding to characterize a breast lesion. The next is, in a B mode, we get a 2D image. if and we many a times the subtle abnormalities which are non-mass abnormalities like an architectural distortion or a speculation which we appreciate well on a mammogram is hardly appreciated on a 2D image. See, for example, look at this example. This is actually a speculated lesion. However, it's so difficult to appreciate the speculation on the standard 2D image. However, the volume probe gives the corona-like image, so which beautifully depicts these speculations and the architectural distortions which we hardly appreciate on a 2D image. And we also have a tomographic slice-like imaging, so we can walk through the slices in any plane because we acquire a set of volume of that particular area, and hence we can get beautiful architectural distortions which is hardly or ever never appreciated on the 2D image. The color flow. So this is actually now is a standard technique that is used in all across the body. It does not have much application in this evaluation of a solid lesion. However, look at this case. This is a cystic lesion with some amount of echogenic content in the dependent portion. So the question to be answered is it a clot or a solid component? When you switch on the color, you see the color or the vascularity within this area that helps us to differentiate that this is a complex solid cystic mass and not a complicated cyst. Also, it helps to identify the intraductal lesion and helps to differentiate it from the debris, which is the another close differential which we will not be able to appreciate on a just B mode image. Elastography. So this is something very interesting and has established wider applications in breast. What if you have a technique which is much superior to your hand palpation to assess the stiffness of the tissue? And that is what elastography does. So it measures either the relative or the absolute stiffness of the lesion based on whatever technique that you use, which helps in the characterization of the lesion much better along with the B mode and hence increases the specificity of our diagnosis. And the beauty of it is also available in the volume linear probe. So you appreciate not only the morphology, but also the elastography, and hence the speculated lesions have shown the speculations well on the volume imaging and with the overlapping elastography values. So what is the clinical application for this? This has much wider application now in assessing the response to chemotherapy, and there are interesting papers which had said that it is comparable to the contrast enhanced MRI. As we use the neoadjuvant chemotherapy more and more for early breast cancers, and hence it will be a very cost effective alternative in assessing the chemotherapy response. Contrast enhanced ultrasound, though, has got interesting applications in assessing the aggressiveness of the tumor and also in certain situations comparable to the dynamic contrast MRI. But it has some inherent limitations that it comes with a loaded multi-vial doses, and hence we have to line up at least 4 or 5 patients in a day to use contrast, and that's why it's not very widely used, though has there are a lot of research papers which had shown promising results comparable to the MRI. Now, we have got so much of technology in hand. However, if you do not know well about your machine and also about the technology, it is very, very similar to what is like this fellow is not able to use the ladder properly. So we end up something like this. We may have a fabulous machine with us, but if you do not know how to use the machine well and what is the technology that is available to us, we'll finally end up nowhere and end up in giving suboptimal images, which will be reflected on our reports too. So look at this image. What is the difference? This is taken with the same equipment in a same patient evaluating the same lesion. However, the image on the top is way inferior to image below. This is a very poor quality image because the focus is not right, the gain is not optimized, and the harmonic imaging and compound imaging are not optimally used to evaluate the lesion better. Again, look at this case. This is a huge lesion. We do get patients with large, big tumors, and the linear probe may not be enough, sufficient to analyze this lesion in toto. We do have an option of virtual convex in a linear probe. Still, it is not good enough to evaluate the lesion margins completely. So, what do we use? We use something called a panoramic view to assess the lesion in total, and hence you can measure the lesion better and also assess the margins better. This is available in most of the machines, and it's important for us to ask for and use it in the appropriate way. We have seen about the machine. Now let's see a little bit about the theoretical knowledge that we have to have before we start off with the cases. Starting with the anatomy. So breast is composed of mixed glandular tissue and fat. And these are the five layers that we need to get in every single picture, irrespective of the size of the breast. This is the skin, the subcutaneous fat, the glandular tissue, the retromammary fat, and the pectoralis muscle. So, whenever you start a case, you have to adjust the depth and the focus based on the thickness of the machine. Sorry, based on the thickness of the patient. So, the machines will have certain presets. However, it cannot be applied across all type of patients. We may have a very thin breast, very thin lady with a small thickness of breast, wherein if you switch on your preset, you will actually be seeing the lungs up to the lungs. On when it is a very thick, very big breast, you may see only part of the glandular tissue, and you may completely miss out part the posterior aspect of the glandular tissue and the retromammary fat. So you need to optimize based on the patient's breast size. BIRADS, all our reporting is based on the BIRAD lexicon. What does the ultrasound BIRAD lexicon says? It talks about the shape, orientation, margin, boundary, posterior acoustic features, echogenicity, and of course, what happens to the surrounding tissue. So let's see one after the other. This is the shape. The shape can be either round or oval. When you don't have a round or an oval shape, you call them as irregular. In this case, you can also see this lesion is being parallelly oriented with sharp interface, and this lesion is not parallel and has got an echogenic halo, which is more suspicious for malignancy. Again, you can see posterior acoustic enhancement, and in this case, a posterior acoustic shadowing. So you see, in addition to the size, all these features, and the second one being the echogenicity. The one is anechoic when it is which is similar to that of a fluid, hypoechoic. The echogenicity is compared to the surrounding fat tissue. So hypoechoic, isoechoic when it is equal, hyperechoic when it is more than the fat, and complex when you have mixed signals within the same lesion. The next one is circumscribed, angular, microlobulated, spiculated, and indistinct. So, this margin assessment is the crucial finding that we see on the B mode ultrasound to characterize the lesion as benign or malignant. So, anything which is non-circumscribed, which includes angular, microlobulated, spiculated, and indistinct, should be viewed with suspicion and should be biopsied to prove or disprove a breast cancer. The last one is seeing the surrounding tissue, which is the skin changes and what are the ducts, whether it has dilatation, it has got a debris, and calcification either within the mass or in the duct or outside the mass, and straightening of the Cooper's ligament. So these are these lines which is caused by the desmoplastic reaction and the fibrosis that happens around, which is very similar to the architectural distortion that we see on appreciate on the mammogram, so which causes straightening of the Cooper's ligament. So we know that this is how we analyze the lesion. With these are all the features, and we don't stop with that. We also see the surrounding tissue and see how it is shows any particular changes. So we have seen the basics. Now we will move on to the interesting part of the talk, which is the case-based learning. So I have basically divided the set of cases into three major divisions. The first set of cases will talk about the basic role of ultrasound. The second set will talk about the role of ultrasound in influencing the management. And the third one is how can we use the ultrasound beyond masses, and what is the advantage of using this advanced technologies in characterizing them better. The first set is being the set of cases where ultrasound plays the key role in the diagnosis of the particular set of patients. The first set being a set of four women, all of them above 40 years, with a palpable breast lump. Because they were above 40 years and they were presenting with a breast complaint, obviously we would start with the mammogram. So these are the four mammograms of those patients. What do we see? We see a mass. Beyond that, we will not be able to tell anything about the diagnosis. So let's see what the ultrasound does. The first one is, as we saw in the nomenclature, Byron, this is an oval shaped anechoic lesion, circumscribed margin. We know that this is a simple cyst. The second one is also a cystic lesion, but in addition to that, we can see a fluid debris level. So this is a complicated cyst, a simple cyst which is complicated by infection. The third one is a cystic lesion with an echogenic content. As we saw previously, the role of Doppler was utilized, and we are pretty sure that this echogenic content is a solid component and the diagnosis is a complex solid cystic mass. The last one, the lesion is entirely solid. So, with all the features suspicious, it has focally indistinct margins, a microlobulated margin. So, this is a suspicious solid lesion. So, the first one needs just reassurance. The second one can be aspirated because clinically she also had mild pain. The third one has to be biopsied. So, how do we do the biopsy? We do strictly under image guidance because we need to target the solid component, and the solid component was biopsied. And the fourth one, which is entirely solid with suspicious morphology, was also biopsied and proved to be a breast cancer. Now, look at this set of case. Two women, both of them had history of recent surgery for phyllodes tumor, now with palpable breast lump. So again, mammogram was performed, and in this set of two women too, we see a mass. Beyond that, we are not able to characterize. This is even a tomo image. You can see that margins are pretty circumscribed, but still we are not sure what are we dealing with. Look at the ultrasound. This is definitely a solid mass with internal vascularity, and this is a recurrent phylloid, and this needs biopsy. The second one is a predominantly cystic and little bit of solid areas with intense posterior acoustic enhancement. And believe me, they do not have any internal vascularity. And when you ask more history, she said it's been there much more diffuse immediately after surgery, and it's pretty well organized after 2 or 3 months. So this is a case of seroma. Again, ultrasound plays a key role in differentiating between the recurrence and the seroma. This needs biopsy, and this just needs reassurance and follow-up imaging. This is a 54-year-old lady who presented with left breast lump and pain. Again, noted this is a sudden onset of breast lump and pain. So again, mammogram was done, which also shows the mass with beautifully circumscribed margins. Nothing beyond that. The ultrasound shows a cystic lesion. So this, though I have not shown you a video, all these are free floating internal echoes, and you can see that there is a fluid debris level. So this is a complicated cyst because she presented with breast lump and pain, which is of sudden onset. So that's what we think, right? But if you carefully look all around the cyst, the antero-inferior aspect of this cystic lesion showed this little solid element, solid component with internal vascularity. So the diagnosis of complicated cyst is now changed to a complex solid cystic mass. And as we all know, this solid component has to be biopsied under ultrasound guidance, and it was a papillary carcinoma. Now, again, we have a set of two women This was less than 40 years. And so, in fact, they were in early 30s and they presented with a palpable breast lump. So, because they were in early 30s, it's good to start with an ultrasound. So, look at the D mode imaging of these two cases. Both of them look hypoechoic, parallel, circumscribed margin. So, are we going to call them as BIRAD 3 and go back and ask her to come back after 6 months for a follow up? Now, look at the elastography of this first case. This is completely blue and it's very less elastography values. And so we are pretty convinced that this is a probably benign finding. But look at the second case. Our diagnosis now totally shifts, and we are not going to send her and saying that you can come back after 6 months because the elastography values are way high, close to 300, and we have a stiff rim sign. And I will not be happy to send her back for a follow up. I would like to do the biopsy right away. And the first one was a fibroadenoma, and the second one was a triple negative breast cancer. As we all know, triple negative breast cancer is notorious to have a circumscribed margin and is very well seen and more commonly seen in younger age women. So in this case, elastography shifted my diagnosis and upgraded, and I upgraded BIRAD 3 lesion to a BIRAD 4, and I performed the biopsy. This is a 50-year-old woman with right breast lump. So mammo is pretty straightforward in this. You can see the lesion and the posterior third of the breast in the inner central quadrant, and you can see the speculations very well appreciated on the tomo image. Yes, the ultrasound also confirms the finding that the lesion has all suspicious morphological features, non-parallel, indistinct margins, echogenic rim, and also high values on elastography. So what's the role of ultrasound here? If you carefully look at the surrounding area, you can see this little lesion which is seen in the inferior and posterior and medial aspect of the index lesion. And this also shows an equally hard elastography values. And this MR was performed because she wanted a breast conservation surgery. And this lesion is pretty beautifully seen as we see picked up on the ultrasound. You can see if we have not done the ultrasound and picked up this lesion, we would have easily done a lumpectomy, leaving the cancer behind. So, whenever you see an index lesion, you should not have a source of sense of satisfaction. Always look around the surrounding tissue, look for small additional focus, which is going to have a huge impact. She can still undergo a conservation, but you can give her a tumor free margin if you pick up small subtle findings like this, which is very much possible by a careful ultrasound of the surrounding tissue. And this is the specimen mammogram post lumpectomy, which actually shows this the index lesion, and this is the little lesion which we had picked up on ultrasound. Now, from a symptomatic lady, we are moving to a 60-year-old lady who came to us for screening. This is a scattered parenchyma, and hence mammogram is very sensitive to pick up subtle abnormalities. As in this case, it had picked up this small lesion, which is beautifully seen on the mammogram. The lesion oval shaped with circumscribed margins. Again, ultrasound has confirmed that it is the same. But if you change the probe into the orthogonal plane, the whole picture changes from a small solid mass with circumscribed margin to an intraductal lesion with internal vascularity. This is very important. I want to emphasize that whenever you do an ultrasound, always remember to document the lesion in two orthogonal planes, because a second plane can give you an entirely different a look to the lesion. And you always have to measure in 3 dimensions. So you should not miss scanning the patient in the orthogonal plane. And this was indeed a papilloma, which was biopsied. Now, as like the first set, we are moving on to the last set. Again, a set of 4 women. This time, all of them are lactating, presenting with a palpable breast lump. As you all know, ultrasound is the modality, or the first modality to start with whenever we see a lactating woman. Let's see. So this is the case 1, case 2, case 3, and case 4. So what are we going to do? What is the all different possibilities it can be. So some is showing a solid lesion with internal vascularity, some is not showing, and there are two heterogeneous lesions. So just by applying the Bired knowledge, we would not be able to narrow down our differential diagnosis. The main advantage of ultrasound is you have a direct contact with the patient. Use it, talk to the patient, and you also can examine her. Put your hand on her breast, see whether the lump is warm or whether she is tender. Is there any associated skin changes? It's so easy to talk, which is not possible in the other modalities. So utilize it. It's very important to converse with the patient. So after that, these are the information after interaction and examination. The first one is a painless lump, no constitutional symptoms. However, the lesion shows internal vascularity and it's pretty big, up to 5 centimeter. The second one is a painless lump, no constitutional symptom. Lesion shows no internal vascularity. The third, the heterogeneous lesion is very painful. She has got fever. When you examine, the lump was tender, the skin was red, the lesion shows no vascularity. You can see surrounding tissues showing so much of echogenicity. The last one, though looks very similar to the third case, she has totally painless. She had no constitutional symptom. She was so comfortably lying down. So that has to alert us something very similar to an abscess, but the patient is so comfortable. You can see so much of inflammation around. You can also do a single view mammogram to get to see the fat density lesion in a solid appearing galactosele. Sometimes we may not be able to get a diagnosis and we have to do the biopsy. So after all this, the first case was a lactating adenoma. The second one was a galactosele, which was confirmed by a single view mammogram. The third case, as expected, clinically, she was having all features of abscess, and it was indeed an abscess which was drained. And the last one, which is the most important diagnosis, which should not be missed by us, was a pregnancy associated breast cancer. And it was, in fact, a triple negative, locally advanced breast cancer to start with. So you need to remember this, though it is rare, it is the radiologist who have to initiate the suspicion to the gynecologist. The gynecologist will say just a breast lump and will send it to you for ultrasound. So it is your responsibility to be aware of this entity, and whenever the diagnosis is not fitting in, do not hesitate to biopsy such lesion, not to miss the pregnancy associated breast cancer. Now we have seen all the advantage where ultrasound plays a key role, but it is also equally important to know the limitation of our modality. So this is one such case, which is a 46-year-old woman with left breast lump. So there are so many cystic lesion. So you know that ultrasound is the best modality to assess the cystic lesion. So where will you put it? Is it a simple cyst or it is a complicated cyst? Because you see some nodularity and thickening, are we going to put as a complex solid cystic mass? So where do we really fit in this type of cyst? You have to go back and ask the patient a little more history, and she did reveal that she had a history of injury to the breast a couple of weeks ago, and now the diagnosis is pretty straightforward. So I went and did a mammogram for this, which shows the fat filled cyst. So the now diagnosis is very straightforward. They were all post traumatic oil cyst. Now, the second one, a 52-year-old lady with left breast pain. She had ultrasound done elsewhere and she was advised biopsy. She was extremely anxious because of her previous history. So, this is the ultrasound of the left breast. And with all the knowledge we have, we know that this is an irregular mass, this has microovulated margins, it has got an echogenic rim. So, are we also agree to the diagnosis which she has brought in, and should we go ahead with biopsy? Now, a little more information about the patient. We need to go through her files, talk to her, and then I realized that she is a case of multifocal multicentric right breast malignancy, for which she underwent mastectomy and also a lumpectomy for this little lesion which was seen on mammogram and MRI. And she has just completed few months ago. So now, what will be our suspicion? So, do we have to biopsy this? No, we can get a simple solution by doing a single view mammogram. And it was an area of fat necrosis at the surgical site. And all she need is reassurance. She was a little bit of inflammation, and that's why a non-specific pain. And a year later, you can see the beautiful contraction of the fat necrosis area, and she had no suspicion of malignancy in the operated site. And it was a fat necrosis. The basic role of ultrasound is never complete if we don't talk about the evaluation of axilla. So, whenever you have a suspicious breast mass, always extend your probe to evaluate the axilla. This is a breast mass, and the left level 1 axillary lymph node, which will definitely be not palpable because it just shows a focal area of cortical thickening. And this is the interpectoral or the Rotter's node, which comes under level 2. This is another case of breast malignancy wherein you can see a small lymph node, but the most important feature is the irregular capsular surface, which predicts that the lesion has gone in for a perinodal extension and there is a chance for metastasis, and she needs systemic staging before surgery. Again, a breast mass with bulky level 1 multiple lymph nodes, intramammary node, which is also enlarged and suspicious, and level 2 axillary lymph nodes, which are seen on PET CT. We can also do a dynamic ultrasound, and hence we can assess the actual burden of the axillary nodes, and hence an extremely heavy burden of axillary lymph node also predicts systemic metastasis, and she needs systemic staging. If you have multiple lymph nodes, in this case she had more than 10 lymph nodes, and hence she went for PET CT. To summarize, the basic role of ultrasound: first is ultrasound is the modality of choice to classify cystic lesion, to differentiate solid from cystic lesion. Whenever you have a cystic lesion with a solid component, use color flow to differentiate between the solid cystic mass and complicated cyst. B mode is the basic building block for evaluation of solid lesions. However, sometimes elastography and volume imaging can increase the specificity and characterize the lesion better. You have to utilize the advantage of ultrasound, especially in dense breast, to identify multifocal, multicentric malignancies. And many pathologies can have similar ultrasound features. So it's very important to talk to the patient, clinically correlate to give and to narrow down the diagnosis. Ultrasound is the modality of choice to assess axilla and also the internal mammary lymph nodes. And always be aware of the limitation of ultrasound. Sometimes a single view mammogram can give a easier solution rather than doing a biopsy on a patient. Moving on to the second set of cases wherein we are going to see the ultrasound role in the management. To start with, this is a 50-year-old lady with left breast lump. This is a pretty dense breast which is not showing the mass very well, but you can see the suspicious left axillary lymph nodes. However, you can see the mass which is speculated with architectural distortion well on the tomo image. Now, what is the role of ultrasound? Ultrasound, again, we know in dense breast, we are not only assessing the lesion, but we also going to see whether any additional lesions are there, what is the axillary nodal burden. If we can see the lesion very well, we can right away also perform the biopsy. So we did. This was an invasive lobular carcinoma. So we all know invasive lobular carcinoma is known to have multicentric, multifocal, and also the contralateral breast. She went ahead with MR. You can see the MR of the left breast, the speculated lesion, and also the enlarged lymph node. As expected, she also showed an intense enhancing mass in the right breast. So what do we do next? Can we go ahead and do an MR guided biopsy? No, we can actually do a second look ultrasound by triangulating the lesion well. This was triangulated, and this was the suspicious lesion, which also shows increased values on elastography. This was biopsied and turned out to be a mixed ductal lobular carcinoma, and she underwent lumpectomy on both the sides. And this was the specimen ultrasound. You can actually see in specimen ultrasound the lesion looks way suspicious, that it's irregular, microlobulated margins. So if you keep on also do the second of the specimen ultrasound, it will be easier for you to understand the morphology of the lesion much better. 70-year-old lady with right breast lump. Yes, I said right. It is 70-year-old, but pretty dense breast. And you can see that there is a lesion in the posterior third of the right breast, which is very well seen on on the tomo image showing the microlobulated margins. Again, all features of malignancy on ultrasound, also with hyperechoic rim and internal vascularity. She also had a very tiny suspicious axillary node. She had a high values on elastography, and she opted for conservation surgery, and hence MR was done. And you can see another small enhancing mass in the inner quadrant. The lesion was in the outer quadrant, the index cancer, and we picked up a small additional focus in the inner quadrant. And we did a second look ultrasound, and we could pick up this little one on the inner quadrant. If you see on the dual mode, you can see it's very, very similar to the opposite breast. So, in fact, I agree that this lesion was picked up on mammogram. There is no big change in the management, but it is way easier to do a biopsy under ultrasound guidance, which is much convenient for the patient, cost effective for the patient, and also convenient for us. A 45-year-old lady with left breast malignancy. She is locally advanced for neoadjuvant chemotherapy. So, as we already saw, the value of elastography in assessing the chemotherapy response. So, this is the pre chemotherapy image. You can see an irregular lesion with very high elastography values and abnormal lymph nodes. And this is the post chemotherapy. The lesion is almost shrunk, but elastography values are very, very similar to the adjacent parenchyma and the fat, and even the lymph nodes are near normal. So this is comparable, definitely comparable to the MRI. You can see this lesion. There is no enhancement. Though we see a lesion in the B mode, the elastography was absolutely near normal, which is comparable to the non-enhancement on the MRI. As we all know, ultrasound is the most commonly used modality for all the breast interventions. The interventions can be diagnostic, which includes biopsy of the breast lesion or the biopsy or FNAC of the axillary lymph nodes. Therapeutic being aspiration of a complicated cyst for symptomatic relief, aspiration of a breast abscess, or vacuum assisted excision of the benign breast lesion. And also, ultrasound is used for localization of a non palpable breast mass, marker placement of marker posts for neoadjuvant chemotherapy, and for targeted axillary dissection. To summarize the role in management, lesions seen on MR can be detected on ultrasound if we use proper triangulation techniques. Lesions with ultrasound correlate are more likely to be more likely to be malignant. And whenever you find a subtle abnormality, use the advanced technology. Use of elastography and volume imaging can help to localize the lesion and also to target the lesions for biopsy. It can be used effectively for follow-up of neoadjuvant chemotherapy, both for the tumor and for the axillary nodes. Though for tumor, MRI is superior. Axillary nodes, ultrasound is the best modality to assess the treatment response. And 3D volume imaging with elastography is comparable to MRI and is going to be a promising equivalent to assess the treatment response. Elastography can be sometimes used to decide the biopsy on a BI-RADS 3 lesion. And we all know ultrasound is the easiest modality for all breast interventions. Now, we are moving to the last set of cases where the role of ultrasound beyond masses. What is beyond mass? That is something terminology called non-mass lesions. It is an area of altered echo texture. It's different from surrounding breast tissue or from the contralateral breast. They do not conform to the shape of a mass. And we all know this terminology is not described in ultrasound BI-RADS, and it is also not uncommon for us to encounter these sort of non-mass lesions in our day-to-day clinical practice. Whenever we find a non-mass finding on mammogram and MRI and try to correlate them and find them or localize them on ultrasound, we do see non-mass lesions. Non-mass lesions are approached in terms of echogenicity, whether they are ductal or non-ductal. However, there are majority of the studies which say non-ductal abnormalities are considered as non-mass lesions. And whenever you see a non-ductal abnormality, classify them as either indistinct or mottled or geographic. And how are they distributed? Very similar to the way we describe non-mass enhancement in the on MR. And whenever you see a non-mass lesion, also look for associated features like calcifications and posterior shadowing and architectural distortion. There is a whole list of causes which can cause neoadjuvant, which can cause non-mass abnormality. But Fibrocystic is the most common benign lesion, and in malignancy, it is either a DCIS or an invasive lobular carcinoma. So, what are the features of malignant non-mass lesion? They can be either mottled or geographic appearance, and they are distributed in regional distribution. Mostly, they will be associated with associated findings like architectural distortion, shadowing, or calcification. And whenever you see an abnormality on other imaging findings and you find a non-mass correlate, it's more likely to be malignant. And the most common carcinoma, as I said, was a DCIS or an invasive lobular carcinoma. Let us see a sorry, set of cases which has non-mass lesions. The first one is a 65-year-old lady for screening with family history of breast cancer. It's a fatty breast, so mammogram is very, very sensitive in picking up subtle abnormalities. As in this case, it has picked up a small focal area of architectural distortion, which is very well seen on the tomo view and also on the spot view. But it's going to be difficult on ultrasound. Whenever you have a large fatty breast, to identify an abnormality on ultrasound, it's not that easy. However, I was lucky in this case to pick up an area of non-mass lesion, which also showed a very high elastography values. Now, look at this volume image. So this is a small area of non-mass lesion with shadowing on the 2D image. But if you see the volume image which had given the coronal picture, the details are exquisitely brought and it's very similar to what we saw on the mammogram. We can see this little non-mass lesion with beautiful architectural distortion so well depicted on the volume image. We can also do the elasto. It consistently showed an area of increased elastography values on the volume image and also on the tomographic slice. This was targeted, biopsied, and it was an invasive ductal carcinoma. This is a 32-year-old lady with vague lumpiness. So she was very young when I examined her. It was not felt like a lump. There was some abnormal thickening, which she called as something abnormal, I feel. And so this lady is in fact very good that she felt this abnormality and has come for our medical attention. So when I did a careful targeted ultrasound at that area, you can see a small non-mass abnormality, which also shows higher elastography with increased vascularity at that site. This was targeted and biopsied, and this reported was as DCIS. This was the mammogram of the same patient. You can see subtle area, regional distribution of suspicious microcalcifications, which are coarse, heterogeneous, and fine pleomorphic, which exactly corresponds to the site where she claimed as lumpiness and where we found a non-mass abnormality. Remember, this is a 32-year-old lady. So if you are not aware of this entity and do a careful targeted ultrasound, we are going to totally miss this lesion because we may not even ask for a mammogram in this age group. This is again an even younger patient, 29-year-old lady who presented to us with a lump in the left breast. We started with ultrasound. No big deal. You can see all features of suspicious features of mass in this. You can see there is an irregular shaped lesion, microlobulated margins, high elastography values. What's so big about it? It's just a suspicious lesion which needs biopsy, right? But when I did an ultrasound of the adjacent tissue, I found something definitely abnormal. I'm not able to characterize this something abnormal, so I compared the opposite site. So this is the same site on the opposite side, ultrasound. Now I'm pretty sure that what I'm scanning and what I felt something abnormal was really abnormal, and it is not something I'm imagining it. Now, the elastography of the normal right breast, which shows very, very normal values of less than 30, and the elastography of this sheets of abnormal non-mass area show way high up to 250. So now I'm pretty sure that she is not having just the abnormal lump, but the surrounding area is definitely abnormal in her left breast. That the palpable lesion was biopsied and it was an invasive ductal cancer, and we then proceeded with the mammogram. Corresponding to the abnormal area on ultrasound, I can see lot of abnormal density on the mammogram also. She had a global asymmetry in the upper outer quadrant of right breast, which also shows extensive non-mass enhancement along with the invasive cancer. So it was abnormal all across the modality, and the final pathology was invasive cancer with extensive DCIS occupying one or two quadrants of her left breast. So you need to identify this abnormal non-mass lesions. This case had presented with a small lump, and so we are able to. She can also present with non-calcified DCIS alone without an invasive component. So we need to be aware of this terminology and the findings of non-mass lesions. This is a 41-year-old lady with a lump in the right axilla. That was her only complaint. She had mammograms and ultrasound done elsewhere multiple times because her lymph node was abnormal. She was sent to be by my oncosurgeon for biopsy of this lymph node. And this lymph node turned out to be a metastatic carcinoma from breast. And hence, we repeated the mammogram here. You can see not much finding on the MLO, but you cannot miss this focal asymmetry on the CC view, which is beautifully depicted on the tomogram, tomoslices, along with architectural distortion. Now, she did not present with a palpable abnormality in her breast. So, this is the ultrasound of the right axilla, definitely abnormal bulky lymph node, again in the area of the lower central quadrant around 6 o'clock. I can feel something abnormal. I see some non mass abnormality. I had an opportunity to see the opposite upper quadrant of the breast, which is specifically showing normal tissue. So if you do an elastography, again a normal in the upper quadrant, definitely abnormal in the lower quadrant. So not all cancers present with mass. There are a lot of cancers which present with non-mass abnormality, and this case indeed was an invasive lobular carcinoma. As we all know, invasive lobular carcinomas tend not to produce mass. They grow around the normal parenchyma as sheets of tissues like this. So they may not see a gross abnormality in any modality sometimes, and they may not be clinically palpable as like in this case. The last case in the last set is a 62-year-old lady with spontaneous bloody left nipple discharge. She is a doctor. She had lot of pain, so tense breast, and she had, even with mild compression, she was pouring out blood. So you can see that there is increased density compared to the opposite breast, which corresponds to all the dilated ducts filled with echogenic contents and surrounding inflammation. On the mammogram, we also see abnormal calcifications, and we can definitely perform a stereotactic biopsy, but she was in lot of pain because of the tense breast. On ultrasound, a careful ultrasound at one particular area, I was consistently getting abnormal elastography values, and I targeted that lesion, and that was a DCIS. So, this is a case where definitely we could perform a stereotactic biopsy, but a clinical condition did not allow me to perform a stereotactic biopsy. And with the use of elastography, I could target the most suspicious lesion where we cannot differentiate the duct filled with debris versus a duct filled with mass, like in this case. So, to summarize, what is the role of ultrasound beyond masses in evaluation of non mass lesions? You can localize non mass abnormality detected by other modality. Ultrasound correlate lesions are more likely to be malignant. You need to identify the non mass abnormalities. You need to be aware of this term, and you need to pick up an abnormality, especially when we do ultrasound as a first investigation. And whenever it is associated with other findings like calcifications and architectural distortions, which are beautifully brought out with volume imaging, we know that the non mass lesion most likely represent malignancy. And we can also target the non mass abnormality. So remember these fundamentals. You have to know well about your machine, the patient, and the biret. Optimally use the various ultrasound techniques to improve detection and characterization, and know the basic role of ultrasound. Where ultrasound plays a key role is to differentiate solid versus cystic lesion, characterize cystic lesion, and also the solid mass. And ultrasound is the best modality to assess the axilla. Ultrasound plays a very important role in detection of multifocal multicentric cancers, especially in dense breast. It has a role in second look ultrasound in detecting the lesions for which are found on MR. It can also is a good tool to assess the treatment response, especially promising role of 3D elastography comparable to dynamic contrast enhanced MRI. And you need to be aware of the non-mass lesion to identify them, localize them, characterize them, and target for histopathological diagnosis. And as we all know, the most common modality for breast intervention is ultrasound. If you use ultrasound in the right way, ultrasound will remain and will play an integral part in the management of breast diseases. Thank you for your patient listening. I'll be happy to take if any questions are.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Rupa, for that insightful presentation through the numerous case studies that you've put together for us in today's session. So it was great. Gave us a clear understanding of how ultrasound imaging plays an important role in your practice to be more efficient with your diagnosis. So thank you so much for sharing your rich experience with us. We will now move to the Q&A session moderated by my colleague, Paul. Paul, over to you.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks, Dr. Rupa, for this very insightful presentation. We have Dr. Deepa asking a question: is there any role of screening ultrasound breast in average risk women aged specifically between 30 and 35 years?
Yeah, if you don't have an MR, if you have a contraindications for MR in the average, because some group of intermediate risk are subjected to MR. And if MR can't be done, ultrasound definitely plays a role there to identify small lesions, because dense breast, so mammogram may not be sensitive in those group of patients.
Okay, thank you. The other one is from Dr. Ganesh. He wants to know what is the difference between angular margin and lobulated margin.
Okay, angular is something very sharp, and lobulation is small little curves that arises from the margins, which we call it as microlobulated when they are just 3 millimeter projections from the margins. Like a small curve is called microlobulated. Angular will have a very sharp peak-like, how do we explain that? A small peak-like projections from the mass.
Okay. Another question is, what are the ultrasound findings of fibrocystic breast disease?
Okay, first and foremost is fibrocystic breast disease is a pathological entity, and we don't report it as fibrocystic breast disease on imaging. It can be, you can see a lot of cysts, you can see fibroadenomas, you can see non-mass fibroadenosis-like lesions. So all these are spectrum of fibrocystic breast disease, but fibrocystic breast disease per se is a pathological terminology and not a radiological terminology. So we need to describe the finding and we need to tell the recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question is, in a case of complex cystic lesion with a small solid component, do we go ahead with ultrasound guided biopsy or advise excision biopsy?
We can do an ultrasound guided biopsy. It is not at all difficult. You can also, if you find the cyst is too tense, we can aspirate a little bit of fluid and also send for cytology and target the solid component. So especially we recommend upfront surgical excision for diagnosis. We don't even practice that now. If it is a discordant report, or if you get, for example, an atypical ductal hypoplasia on the image guided biopsy wherein it can go for an upgrade, only then we will tell them maybe we can do an excision biopsy in this case. So any small lesion can actually be targeted on ultrasound. It is not difficult at all.
Okay. Another question is, a lesion picked up on MRI, it seems okay on the first look. If they're too small to characterize, most of the times, especially if there are multiple areas of fibroadenosis. So in which case, how do you classify such smaller lesions in initial BI-RADS?
I didn't understand the question. So you mean to say that this lesion, if we had picked up beginning, is what you mean to say?
No, it is picked up on the MRI.
Mhm.
but it's too small, and it's characteristic most of the times, especially if there are multiple areas of fibroadenosis. In such cases,
We have
how do you classify as by BI-RADS 3? That's the question.
No.
Specific.
When we do a second look ultrasound and we see something abnormal, which is strangulated to the MR lesion on ultrasound, and we see a lesion with all the suspicious characters, we will be putting it as BI-RAD 4 and will ask for a biopsy. If you find the lesion appearing so benign, but it has an MR identification and MR characterization as suspicious, we still have to biopsy to prove or disprove that it is just a benign lesion. So, doing an MR will also pick up some false positive findings, but we end up doing a biopsy. We have to do a biopsy to prove or disprove that it is an additional focus. So, we would not call it as BI-RAD 3, we will call it as BI-RAD 4.
Okay. The other one, madam, is a kind of question which come from Dr. Shilpa. She's saying, what is the current screening protocol for breast cancer? I would also like to ask here from my side, do you normally do, if you're comfortable and you're kind of confident about, and you don't see any suspicion in a 2D elastogram or 2D imaging, then do you still go out with elastogram, or can you please explain that, ma'am?
Okay, the first question is screening, right?
Yeah,
so for a normal population, that means who have got a low risk, the screening starts from the age of 40 and it will be with mammogram. An intermediate risk, for example, I'm just saying one example of intermediate risk wherein the lady had presented with a personal history of cancer or a family history. The mother had a cancer at the age of 40. We would start at least 10 years before. Screening protocol starts at least 10 years before, but we will not do mammogram less than 30. We start only from the age of 30. So, for example, if the mother has got a breast cancer at the age of 45, we will start her screening from the age of 35 instead of starting at the age of 40. 40 is for a women with low risk or no family history and all that. The third is the high risk population who have genetic mutation or history to the chest when they are young. So they fall under high risk category, for whom we start screening from the age of 25. From 25 to 30, it will be an annual MRI. From 30 years of age, we combine MRI and mammogram for screening. So there are two ways to screen those high risk population. You screen them only annually with both the investigation at one point of time, or we screen them so that we see them every 6 months, because those high risk population develop interval cancers even within 1 year. So we tend to call her first for mammo or MR, and then 6 months later with another investigation. So we get an opportunity to see the patient, scan the patient every 6 months. So these are broadly the categories for screening of the population. The second question, can you please repeat?
Is it a standard protocol to go in when you do an ultrasound screening to go for 2D and then go for elastography, or if it's only suspicious masses, then you go in for
I find a lesion, I tend to see, because we have lot of lesions, a lot of cancers which appear very benign on a B mode, right? So we have a triple negative cancer, we have a medullary cancer. There's a whole group of cancers which can mimic like a fibroadenoma. So we can't just believe on the morphology like in that case. So there's no harm in doing an elastography for all, because it might benefit a certain group of patients. So though the literature says elastography can downgrade a 4E or upgrade a BI-RAD 3, I personally feel upgrading a BI-RAD 3 makes a lot of difference to the patient, because we save her life. We don't send her and ask her to come back after 6 months. She may or may not come to us. So even those circumscribed benign appearing lesions, it's always good to see the elastography so that we don't miss a benign appearing cancers, which are actually seen in younger people and they are more aggressive, like triple negatives.
Okay. Another question is, can we see microcalcification on ultrasound, and how do you differentiate microcalcification and a macrocalcification?
Okay. Macro calcifications are definitely bigger that you see in a fibroadenoma. One. And first thing, microcalcification, ultrasound is not the modality to pick up microcalcification. But when you see an abnormality, as just a sheet of non-mass lesion with calcification, that's when you have to be aware of that you are dealing with something abnormal in that patient. And when there is a large area of DCIS, those ducts filled with the echogenic content and the calcification, it is so easy to pick up with the advanced technology now. But remember, ultrasound is not the modality to identify calcification or to differentiate calcification. When it comes to calcification, it's always mammogram.
Okay. Another question is, do you go for a needle aspiration cytology or true cut biopsy for breast lesions?
In breast, it is always a true cut biopsy. It is not FNAC for the reason that a same lesion can have a spectrum of finding, and we can underestimate by doing an FNAC. So it's always one. And if you do, and a lot of cancers go for upfront neoadjuvant chemotherapy, even when they are early breast cancers, even when they're operable breast cancers. So we need to know the molecular subtyping of those cancers, which is possible only with a true cut biopsy. In breast, it's always, if nodes, we can do both. But when it comes to breast lesion, it is always a true cut biopsy.
Okay. The last question is, if a patient is having BIRAT3 and has a regression of lesion after 6 months after follow-up, how do we proceed?
We have to downgrade her to BIRAT2. There are two ways, points, two places where we can downgrade BIRAT3 to BIRAT2. One is on a regular follow-up. You do a 0, 6, 12, 24 months. You follow her up for 2 years according to the recommendation. The lesion being stable, she will be downgraded to BIRAT2. And during the follow-up, whenever the lesion shows regression of size, again, it is a BIRAT2. But remember, always lesions have to be measured in 3 dimensions, not just 2. And one person, so for example, if one radiologist has measured in one plane and is given 2 measurements, the second radiologist measures in another plane with 2 dimensions, and you cannot call them actually they have regressed. But if they had regressed during the follow-up, yes, it can be downgraded to BIRAT2.
We'll take one more question, Dr. Rupa. This is for lesions located less than 5 centimeters from the index lesion, but in different quadrants. Would you describe that as multicentric or multifocal?
It becomes multicentric.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think with that, we are through with the questions. Over to you, Sudeep.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you, Dr. Rupa, for taking up all the questions from our delegates. There are a few more unanswered questions, which we'll probably send it to you over email so that we can get back to them.
Sure.
Yeah, because these questions are just rolling in. So, and it's already 10 minutes past our time. So, but yes, this brings us to the end of today's webinar session. It was great. Dr. Rupa, do you have any more final words for us before we let you go?
Yeah, thanks again, the Hologic team, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, delegates all across Asia and some of them from Europe who have joined this session. Thank you so much.
Great.
Good night. Stay safe. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. Hello. Yeah, okay. So thank you so much, Dr. Rupa, and Dr. Cherian. Thank you so much for the great opening for the session tonight. And finally, we would like to thank all the attendees for your participation. We hope you enjoyed today's session. We will upload the recording of this webinar on hologiced.com. So you will receive an email once the video is available on the portal. So once you exit from this, please give us some feedback on the survey form, which will pop up, and that will help us to improve our future sessions. So thank you so much and have a great evening ahead. Bye, everyone. Bye, Dr. Rupa.
Bye.